And what is the date today? Today is the 16th of April. So welcome everyone and to another Connect and Share. And this is episode number 45 of our sessions. And may I please acknowledge our traditional owners of the lands in which we come to from today and the lands which you are connecting with us via Zoom, and pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging, and hope that we learn a lot from the history that they have had on this land, which is more than 60,000 years pre our settlement here on this country. So let's get started for today. There's a lot to cover, as there always is, but let's go through some quick reminders. And the AAAS audit is one thing that we've had on our website now for a little while, and just a reminder that it's there if you're either renewing insurance or if you want to do your own checks against the Australian activity standards. You can do so via the audit process. And that we've negotiated with 3 suppliers that have joined our panel through a competitive process. It's a $1,000 flat rate, and what that is per day, depending on the size of your business and how many activities you conduct that are involved with the AAAS. That may be up for discussion with that auditor, but it's a great rate in which they can come to your establishment and have a look at your processes. If you're questioning anything in regards to this, they're going to join us. The 3 of them are going to join us on the 30th of April. So you can actually ask questions direct with them about the audit process and what that involves. But hopefully what it does is provide a lot more risk management guidance for our sector in the best practice that we can through the AAAS that we have as a tool for us. Again, just a reminder about the public holiday. It's for ACT, not for New South Wales. So the 26th of April is a Monday. Extension on the tourism grants, that closes Monday. So if you're wanting to look at those building better tourism product, tourism development funds, things like that, they're all on Destination New South Wales website. They actually close on Monday for all flood affected regions. So if you wanted to get in, you've got a tight deadline before you, but the chance is still there. Now, the events. Well, today we're going to talk about the Australian Camps Association conference that's still going on, actually, in Creswick right now, but I flew back yesterday, but I'm going to give you a bit of a snapshot of that today. But there's also the Parks and Leisure New South Wales, ACT and Queensland conference, which is going to take place in Coffs Harbour in May. So another conference which will give you some information and professional development opportunities. In May, we have the ACA Summit. And as I said to the guys at the ACA conference this week, this is stage 1 of an ongoing opportunity to engage in some of the challenges we have in the sector, but also look at the solutions for these challenges. And that's courtesy of the Outdoor Council of Australia. And as you all know, that I form part of that as one of the board members. So looking forward to that. May, there's a lot going on in May. There's also the Local Government Destination Visitor Economy Conference. Now, this traditionally has a lot of local government people attending it, but it's a really good insight if you're involved in destination promotion, or need to work with your local council on anything to do with your tourism offering. This is a great opportunity to network with some of those people. May and June, so it actually is May and June because it's the 30th, 31st and the 1st of June, is the Outdoor Retailers Exhibition, and that's being held in Melbourne. So if you want to see what new products are out there in the outdoor space, this is a great opportunity to get into that exhibition and talk to our fabulous suppliers. And of course, we can't forget NOAC, which is in the end of September, so 29th of September through to the 1st of October. And abstracts, the final abstracts. So if you want to tell a story, if you want to engage this audience and be a speaker at the event, the abstracts close next week. So the 24th of April is your last opportunity to apply for that. So make sure you get in and put that submission forward if you want to. Alternatively, just register and come along. It's certainly going to be jam-packed and there's some exciting things in store. And more of that, we will talk about it next week's Connect and Share. Okay, on to take 3. You might remember some episodes ago, we had Take 3 for the Sea come and join us, and they are a great organisation that are trying to reduce waste and rubbish in our environments for our future and for the future of our more generations. So the First Wave pilot project is something that they're working with us, National Parks and Wildlife and the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority on. And this is a project where they're going to provide you guys some resources to help educate your visitors and your attendees to your experiences to reduce litter waste. And this is a great project. The first stage of this project is we need your feedback on what's actually happening now on the ground in your business with your visitors, and sort of the rubbish and the witnessing of what you're seeing out there right now. So I really encourage you, if you can spend 2 minutes just to fill that out. You can certainly scan that QR code there, or Leslie might be able to put the link in the chat. I think I sent that on to her, but yeah, that way you can certainly take 2 minutes just to complete that survey and help them out. And what that will do is then provide tools and resources that will come back to you, and you can be part of the project yourself. Fee-free TAFE courses. So last week we discussed how there's some computer skills, some social media engagement, some business administration opportunities out there. So I wanted to emphasize these because they are free, and we always need to continue learning in our environments. And the other thing we noticed from Simone at Lithgow TAFE is there's 2 mountain bike positions for her certificate of attainments for the May course. So if you're wanting to do mountain biking, a certificate of attainment in mountain biking, that is a great opportunity. So make sure you either email Simone or email us and we'll flick it on to Simone for you. The other thing on the mountain biking is our first meeting occurred this week with our mountain bike subcommittee. Great discussion about some of the challenges that we're seeing in this space, but also the opportunities. So our next step is to collate everything that we discussed and really come up with our key priorities. And I look forward to updating you on that further. We have been talking to many different people about their resourcing issues. And we have also been talking to some of our leaders and our politicians about this issue, because it's not going to go away in the short term. What I'm requiring, and you would have noticed this from last week's, but also the newsletter, I'm needing some data from you guys. So what are your case studies? Tell me what's happening on the ground. How many positions do you have still available? How many positions you can't get trained in the time frame you need them to be trained? And what is this doing to your programming? How is it affecting what you're delivering to our public? This is the data that I need to help build a lot more case studies around it. We know generically the issues, but unless I've got some really core hard data, it makes the challenge of that conversation a lot more real. So if you have anything, send it through, please. Annual membership review. This is the time where we ask you guys, okay, we need to know your feedback. What are you getting from us that's a benefit? What are you not getting? How can we help you more as we navigate our programs for 2021 and 22? We would not be here if it wasn't for you, our members, so we need to understand how is it looking and what can we do better for you? But also, what are you enjoying and what should we not get rid of? So again, another survey, I know, but if you could just spend a couple of minutes just filling that survey out for me, and we'll put the link in the chat a little bit later. Okay, what I want to do is just go quickly around the table and around the room, the Zoom room, and ask everyone, what is the best thing that's happened to you this week? So have I got any volunteers who can kick off for me? Is there anyone that would like to volunteer? What is the best thing that's happened to them this week? Everyone's shy.
I'm happy to start.
Go, Rhodey. Thank you.
We had our first Warrumbungles trip this week. So yeah, first clients out in the bungles. So it's a lot bigger than I guess what we would normally do.
Yeah.
Head out for I think 4 days.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and they definitely loved it. It's under our old license when we are allowed to work under school holidays.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, awesome. And that's what a beautiful area that is too. So that's fabulous.
It was, very spectacular, the photos, and I was jealous not to be there.
Oh, so you didn't actually get to go, bugger.
No, it was the two Hughs.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. Who else would like to share something? Okay, Dave. Yep, Dave Gregory. Sorry. I saw you on mute.
Okay, thanks, Laurie. Oh, look, there were so many things this week. Went to a really interesting presentation about, oh, gee, I can't even remember what it was about.
It was so good.
It was so good. Oh, God. Being optimistic. Yeah, that's right. Being optimistic. Oh, look, I think it was really great to meet you down in Victoria. It was great to meet David and really get in amongst finally a face-to-face forum again. I really enjoyed that, just reconnecting with people in the real world. And so seeing programs getting back out. So it was such a fun couple of days down at the camps conference. And so definitely that was the best part of the week, just getting away and catching up with people and chatting.
Yes, awesome. And you might have picked up that I've used his question, Victor's question from that.
It was a good question. I have used it so many times already at the airport, at the supermarket, and it really elicits a much better response. Like, it's really interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Fabulous. Thanks, Dave. Awesome.
Thanks, Laurie.
Mr. Chitty, did you want to go next?
Yes, I sent an email earlier this week to Parks Victoria querying some issues about illegal operators, and I actually got a reply later that day that answered all my questions. Yeah, I'm sure. So that was A, surprising, B, encouraging, but I'm sure that they find out they'll sack the poor bugger. Yeah.
Oh no. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Liz, did you have anything, or Brendan? I take that as a no. Oh no, he can. Oh, Liz is connecting. Oh, you there, Liz?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I was having a bit of a problem there. Look, I won't go into details, but I think the best thing is that I've got a really good dermatologist who has once again picked up some damage that has happened over the years of working in outdoors. So the message there is, folks, make sure you get your skin checks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing is, as you said, it's been picked up. Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, really great message. Thanks, Liz. And I'm not sure if Brenda can hear us, but if he can, more welcome to jump.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Hey, Laurie. So this week's been really good here at the foundation. I think the big thing has been having a lot of people coming back from leave. Everyone's in a really relaxed mood and place, getting ready for term 2, and it's been great to see. See a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while, and I guess it's sort of a reflection of David's there, just getting back together, getting back in the community, and working with people face to face again. It's been really great.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you so much, Brendan. That's great. So the reason why that question, as you might have alluded to, is there was a wonderful session at the ACA conference which highlighted optimism and the effects of negative questioning, or should I say, how are you, and how often do we get that, oh, okay, sort of response. And the more we encourage that optimism and that feeling, it tends to thrive a lot more in our community, in our conversations that we have. So it was a really great session, but as you can see there, we had 160 people in a room, which as the ACA, the American Cancer Association president, when he zoomed in, he was complete jealousy, seeing such a full room next to each other with no masks. So we are very, very lucky indeed that we'll be able to have such a great gathering down in Victoria this week. There was 2 days of engaging speakers and a dinner, and the tours are actually going on right now. And unfortunately, I had to miss out. We've got too much going on here, but I hope the guys are having a great time and making sure they're checking out what the new innovations in camps are and getting some more connections made. The conference theme was recharge, and that it certainly did. I know it did for me, and I'm not too sure about the 2 Davids online, but certainly I came away going, yeah, okay, we're off. We're running back in and we're running. So great to be part of it. So I will give you a bit of a snapshot of my perspective on it, and I will ask David and David, if you have anything that you want to interject on this, please just jump in, because it's obviously just what I've taken from it. And unfortunately, I did miss a couple of the sessions yesterday afternoon as I had to fly back to Sydney. But let's kick off. So the themes, optimism, and I think that one was a really great place to start, because it really set the theme of the rest of the conference, and people's energy was certainly vibrant. There was also a session on health and wellbeing, and not necessarily about, how we do that in the industry and we make everyone health and well. It was more about us and reflecting on our own health and wellbeing, and making sure that, it's the trainer sort of thing. We need to be in the best place to be able to deliver what we do. Pete Griffiths gave a fabulous Australian Camps Association sort of update and a snapshot of the industry, which I'll share some of that content with you in a moment. There was a session on insurance, and again, reiterating some of the challenges that we're having in the insurance sector, and some good conversations around that. And then we had the president of the American Camps Association Zoom in at a time that wasn't too late for him. But that was an incredibly insightful session, and I will give some content on that one as well today. QTF update. So for those that don't speak acronyms as much, it's Quality Tourism Framework, and that is the accreditation program that's run by the Australian Tourism Industry Council. The camps area does tend to align a lot with this accreditation program, probably not so much in our other spaces, but it is a good tool to be able to give you leverage and work with different people, and give you an opportunity to promote yourself a little bit more broader. It's a great self-check mechanism. So by going through the accreditation program, and asks you a lot of questions about your business and understanding, and that way you get to self-reflect and look at opportunities for growth. I have been involved with the Australian Camps Association on a committee with Jay, who works at ACA, to work with the Australian Tourism Industry Council to try to get the AAAS as part of that consideration and accreditation. I'm pleased to say that now we can speak about it because of the conference and the discussion occurred, where we have integrated the questioning around AAAS compliance into this accreditation program. So as we've said a couple of times before, the important thing is that the AAAS is our best benchmark of which to navigate risk management in this industry. And the more we get it integrated with all the other systems that take place across the sector, we're speaking the same language. So it's really great to see. It's still got a little way to go. It's a bit clunky at the moment, but we're working with the committee to try to even that out. And it's a great result.
One of the other questions, I think it was the owner of Cave Creek. It might have been prompted by you. It was a gentleman you were talking to anyway at some stage.
Cave Creek, yep.
Yeah, and he brought up the AAS one, and they sort of said, oh, they tried to intimate that it had always been there in a sense, but certainly they mentioned that the committee, was looking and it would be a part of the thing. The other thing that he brought up was what do customers think about? What's the value to the customer? And that was sort of said that probably not as good as it could be, but part of the aim of the various agencies involved in the accreditation was to work with education departments, broader tourism, government, and that to add value to it, so that if someone had the accreditation, it meant more than it does now. It still means stuff, but perhaps being a far more positive reflection of the quality of the operator.
Awesome, Dave. Thank you. And I think that's exactly right. The power of an accreditation program is a lot more than just the ticking of boxes. It's, yeah, what does it stand for? What does it mean? And I was asked by Pete to stand up and talk about the ACA summit, which I did very briefly. But one thing I highlighted there was one of the learnings of COVID was that the accreditation really didn't stand up to any leverage opportunity over COVID, particularly on a government advocacy sense, nor a consumer confidence sense. So yeah, Tim's probably exactly right. We need to start building that very much. Thank you. So,
Laura, can I just ask a quick question on that as well?
Of course.
The reality is you spoke about the accreditation being a lot about self-reflection, and I'm familiar with the program. It typically and historically has asked, are you AAS compliant? With your state AAS compliant? And the answer would be yes. What's been put in place to actually validate that compliance with the AAS? Because the tourism folks probably would not be able to review and assess that accordingly to make sure that statement is accurate. So I'd be really concerned about ensuring that we put something in place that actually checks the quality of the statement that says, yes, we are compliant.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Liz, and that's where the discussions have mainly been. So where it's up to right now is the questioning is quite more comprehensive than just a yes or a no. It goes into different areas of the AAAS, and it also looks at how that's going to be assessed, and we're working with the ATIC on how that's going to be done. It's not as easy as you know, a tick and flick, and the supplementary content that they've got to supply to verify that will be part of the submission now. So yes, as I say, it's a little bit clunky at the moment, but we're heading in the right direction to have the terminology integrated and the thought process a lot more than just yes or no, I'm compliant, no, I'm not. What areas are you addressing, and which areas do you need, are the gap areas, and that's how the terminology is. And then how we assess it is the next stage.
Yep, okay, thanks.
No worries. And then the final, sorry, go on.
Someone brought up at my table in that discussion, brought up an interesting thing that currently everyone gets exactly the same level of accreditation. You're either accredited or you're not. And in Victoria, for instance, accreditation is mandatory, supposedly, for a education department school before they go to a camp or facility. You know, I think there's a bit of fudge factor there. What they thought was that it might be better if there were, a bronze, silver, and gold, and that only the gold, which would be harder to get, would be the one that would meet a government mandatory requirement. In other words, a new person that was starting in, didn't have everything, might be get a bronze, which means they've ticked most of the boxes and they're on their way, which is better than not doing anything. And then silver, more halfway, but meeting mandatory requirements would only be those people who are actually paying a lot more money for assessment, getting things done far more detailed. But that way, having tiered wouldn't scare people of entering the process.
Yes, that's right. So getting accredited.
They could at least start part of the process and get the business model advantage, which is the key, one of the key things to accreditation. Yeah,
there's interesting arguments about that tiering, and it's great that someone brought it up. I mean, I think that the challenge is, as you say, is people that are starting off, how do they match someone that's been in the place for 20 odd years, 30 years? But then what does that stand for from a consumer sense, and what is the difference between a gold and a bronze? Obviously, trying to incentivize the businesses to get to that goal eventually. But yeah, there's arguments obviously both ways on that one.
But it would also solve comments from, say, the insurance industry, where they would say, hold on, this is an accreditation scheme that no one seems to ever fail. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, instead of failing, you could be ticked in, you're on the way. Yeah. So that's one of the advantages of that is you don't fail, which you're not happening now, but you don't get the full, the full accreditation or something.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I suppose, sorry, Liz, did you want to go?
I was going to say that leads to a whole lot of subjective tools, or that have to be made into objective tools that would rate that, David. So I think if we could get industry to actually tap into an accreditation system of some description that covers off on the AAS, it's a starting point. But the capacity as an industry for us to provide people who can go in and objectively assess somebody's tiered level of expertise, I don't think we have that. And I think it would be problematic at best to try and create it at the stage that the industry is at the moment.
It's good, the conversation we had.
I think the person that suggested it was more seeing it as a goal for the future rather than a let's do it now, of course. Yeah. So it was more, is this where we should be going?
But I think if something has come out of this that certainly our state needs to be well aware of, is that I think accreditation is going to become more important for people like Department of Education in engaging with suppliers. So we've got to obviously make sure the accreditation system is worthy and needs to be what it is. But yeah, the businesses really need to keep watch if they're not accredited or want to work with public authorities. We might be in a situation in the future where we will have to be. So moving down that track swiftly, I think. If there's no other comment on that, I might keep going. So the other news, which is quite sad news actually, because Pete Griffiths and myself, as well as the ACA team, have worked alongside Pete really well over the course of the last year with COVID, and we are certainly collaborating well in that space. And it's unfortunate that he's leaving ACA at the end of June. So we wish him all the best, and certainly a big thanks from Outdoors New South Wales and ACT to him for everything that he has helped our state's camps in all his time with ACA. So we wish him all the best, and hope that he gets a chance to relax after June. So on Pete, he gave us a really good presentation on the average camp and what it looks like, but also some areas that he thought was the messaging from the industry after the last year. So I thought I'd just go through that quickly. As you can see on your screen, he talked about what the average camp looks like in Australia. And he estimates there's about 582 camps right across the country, making up around about 75,000 beds. So it's quite a large figure when you look at it. He did say that it's his guesstimation, and if anyone tells him otherwise, he's certainly able to take that on. But until then, that's the numbers that he's sticking with. But the average camp he can work out, and it's about 174 beds per camp, an average of 23% occupancy. And what I found really interesting is 66% of the business actually comes from schools. And of those, 80% actually are retained. So they keep coming back again and again. 34% came from community groups with a 30% retention rate. And they have, on average, about 15 activities that they run for their customers. They receive around 210 inquiries per annum each from the Camps Association, and the average is around about 1.4 million turnover. That bottom figure there probably highlights some of the issues that we've been speaking of in the past, and certainly something that we brought up at the OCA summit, but we are still highly casualised. And that is obviously of great risk when it comes to things like pandemics and JobKeeper requirements, but also just, some of the challenges we have in retaining staff. So some interesting data there, but I will highlight what he said about the messages for the industry. And certainly it was great to hear the word collaboration, because I certainly have witnessed that since I started here. But collaboration in the industry is even more important than ever before. And we have to work together with one common goal. Advocacy is a role that he didn't really see a lot of in his time with ACA until COVID. And probably he sees now that it is going to be a continual role, which certainly Outdoors New South Wales and ACT see that as a very important role for the whole outdoor sector. He did mention we have a broad message, and we probably need to look at how we refine that, and I completely agree with him on that. When you have a broad message, you tend to have a thin layer of trying to reach the people that you need to reach. He did also talk about the importance of video and imagery, and you might have seen recently his new videos that he's been pushing out about the exposure of the camps environment, the industry, and what it contributes to the communities. So I think we all need to take that on board as operators, as organisations. And as I highlighted at the masterclass, YouTube is one of the biggest search engine tools that exists and will continue to do so. You know yourself, if you're trying to assemble something or put something together, where's the first place you end up going? Google, which sends you to a video of how to do it. So we've got to be a lot more in this space and a lot more savvy in what we can show people with video. Diversification of business was another topic that he touched on. And I think that was emphasised in COVID, where school groups didn't come for so long and we had to pivot, that lovely word, into other segments. And it's a lesson that we all need to remember. We can't get complacent again with having all our eggs in one basket. So having that diversification of part of your organisation or your business is certainly key to long-term survival. He then touched on the issues that we're seeing. And again, I don't think it's anything different to what we've been discussing in these forums. And in actual fact, to just emphasise that we are on the right track here in this state. We're trying to tick those off. But he talked about staff shortages and retention. He talked about the insurance compliance and risk management. Insurance, AB Phillips presented at the conference to talk about the challenges in the sector, probably not dissimilar to the session we had with Affinity some weeks ago, and how that, you really need to consider not the day of renewal, but a long time prior. Food allergies and intolerances, I suppose, not having too much knowledge of the operations, of course, this would certainly be of an issue as the rates of food intolerances and allergies rise in our community. So he certainly highlighted that from the camp sector perspective. And the other thing was the larger group size. So what they're actually seeing now is larger groups coming in to get their experience probably done in a shorter time frame. So whether it be 2 school groups over 2 weeks, it's now 1 group over 1 week, but the size of the 2. So interesting changes and challenges that the sector is seeing right now. So it was a great snapshot from Pete on the whole industry. Dave, if you want to say anything about Pete's presentation, please jump in. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the American Camps Association. Thumbs up, no problem. So the American Camps, Tom Rosenberg was fabulous in giving us a bit of a snapshot of what America looked like right now, and our hearts certainly go out to them and the challenges that they've got. Camps are back in a lot of the states over there, but they still can't do a lot of things that we can do here. So he talked about mindset, and I thought this slide was really interesting in the fact that I think we've always talked about the growth mindset, but we haven't challenged that benefit mindset. And that goes across not just camps, our outdoor learning, everything that we do in the outdoor sector. It's looking at that benefit mindset. where it's about that, again, be well, do good, as well as really emphasising that, what can we do next? Believes in developing their strengths and meaningfully contributing to a future of great possibility. And I think we all stand for that in some way, but how do we impart that onto our attendees and our visitors? He then talked about something that I've been looking into quite a lot, which is the fourth industrial revolution. And this was brought to us by the World Economic Forum some years ago. And they say that the top 10 skills that we're going to need today as we are part of the fourth industrial revolution is around complex problem solving, critical thinking. We need to be more creative, and we need to understand our people more, because we have to value the people aspect as we get into this industrial revolution. Coordinating with others, emotional intelligence is certainly one of those things that we need to be a lot more aware of in this time and age. Judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. Now, I don't know if anyone's read Klaus's book there, but I thought I'll throw it up. Tom didn't highlight this book, but it's certainly where you can find a lot more content around the fourth industrial revolution if you're interested. It's basically saying this is the new way, this is where we're going to have to head, and what do we need to be able to get through and be effective in this time and age. So I don't know, has anyone read this book at all?
I haven't, but it's interesting. I will, but I've read similar things. But people will look at that and think it's it's a bit scary, when in actual fact most of those things are things that Julius Caesar would have been quite comfortable with. Yeah, they're not much different to what humans in positions of command or in a complex society have had to do, and probably even back in tribal days. So they're probably things that in the modern world we've done poorly, we should have been doing all the way along, and we're actually just redoing something that should have been part of our life in the first place. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Dave. Yeah, the book is incredibly interesting, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But it really gives a perspective on that people connection with technology. And as we know, that third industrial revolution is very much about that technology. So it's actually taking now the people factor and addressing it, which, as you say, some of the best leaders in centuries have probably had that to some degree. I pinched this from Vislo, and I will get them credit, of course, for it, but I find this very articulate when it comes to the top drivers for change. And I'm sure you'd all agree with me, certainly the one in the middle about climate change and natural resource constraints is certainly one of them. But there's also the changing work environments and arrangements. Obviously now we've got huge flexibility in how we can operate. The rise of middle class in our emerging markets, rising geopolitical volatility, which, yes, we all know very well about across the world, and consumer concerns about ethical and privacy issues. I think the privacy issues is an interesting one. I thought I'd see a huge decline in this area as we had to declare to everyone where we were at any particular time during COVID. But I'm starting to see that we're very closely getting back to where we were post-COVID on some of this stuff. So I'm watching that one with interest. But yes, those drivers of change are really enforcing those top areas that certainly Tom highlighted in his presentation yesterday. And he then went into, okay, how do we get ready for the fourth industrial revolution with how we are educating our camp participants and the kids that are involved in our outdoor education. So again, he highlighted obviously the skills, but then he said, okay, so we need to look at developing a strong inner self, and social emotional skills. So this is literally taking those skills and then saying, okay, how can we meet them? What are the competencies that we need to teach? Executive functioning, decision making, deep self-knowledge, confidence about what you know, but confidence in what you don't know. And I think we can all take something from this in some of the programs that we offer. And then the last three that he highlighted were individual awareness and emotional regulation, social awareness and empathy, and then driving ambiguity and uncertainty. So a lot of that adaptability, which no doubt we've seen in the last 12 months, but again, highlighting that we're going to have to continue that in the next few decades, I'm sure. Anything from the guys that attended that session that you took away from Tom's presentation?
Yeah, Laurie, just with that, I think it just really hits the nail on the head where the camps come in to be so vitally important. Then there was a huge talk about in Australia where we need to spend $2 billion of extra money on tutoring to get kids caught up on the classes they missed last year, which I think is a complete load of bollocks, because realistically, if you miss a week or 2 or 3, or even, I don't even remember year 10. Like, I have no idea what happened in 94. That shows how old I am. But anyway, but it is those social and emotional connections that they miss out on. If you miss those connections and that experience at a certain level, as a certain developmental level, then you can get left behind. You can really not be prepared for the massive tsunami of change that's coming. And I think one of the most interesting takeaways as well was how he mentioned that most 18-year-olds today in the US are acting or as mature as a 15-year-old. So we're actually, because of technology and because of various factors, we're losing that social and emotional development. There's more anxiety, there's more dramas, and I know this is going against our optimistic approach, but how we want to approach things, but it is the reality that kids are not getting those developmental skills, those relationship skills and those interpersonal skills. And so our 18-year-olds or kids who are supposedly young adults are just still really quite immature adolescents. And I found that really profoundly interesting.
Yeah, completely agree with you there, Dave. Absolutely. It was quite shocking. And I suppose we sort of knew to some degree with the influence of technology and things like that, but those stats really, really hit home. It's a really good point. Thank you.
And some of those issues with younger people, of course, are reflecting what young men and young women are doing as they move into their 20s and 30s. Some of the social and legal and criminal issues that might be growing around society are really, they all link back to that in a bit. When we're not really putting people in the right situations as they come through from 4 or 5 or 6 up through the school.
Yes, that's right. And again, I think that broad messaging that we spoke about before is being very direct about our messaging for all outdoor experiences with these kids. But can't emphasize enough that dealing with these sort of skill sets is so critically important. Any other comment on that before I move on? No? Okay. All right, so I'll jump into what we heard from the networking, which tends to be some of the real hard-hitting stuff. And I always like to include this in my summary because it's what you hear on the ground that is sometimes the most important. So look, everything is back as we know. And everyone I spoke to said, yep, full steam ahead, plus GST or 10 to 20%. So they are just overwhelmed because the resourcing, and the resourcing is really at a critical point. They are down on staff pre-COVID. They are struggling to really recruit empty positions, which we've spoken about earlier. Their product is a lot more diversified since COVID. So again, that sort of pivoting and shifting into areas that they could deliver something for new customers, could be tourism, could be weekend experiences, family get-togethers, so more community group activities, whatever it is, they found that their product now is a lot more diversified since we've been through COVID. So again, I think reiterating that we need to learn from that and not get rid of that, but how do we balance? And certainly one thing I've been quite passionate about from a tourism perspective is yield management, and how a business looks at its yield and maximizes its yield, but also continuing a diversified approach. The critical point on the resourcing is also training, and how they all emphasize that they are recruiting people that they never thought that they would recruit pre-COVID, and they just cannot get them trained or credited as quickly as they would like, purely because they have no time, but also they have no access to flexible learning options that they can do on the job or within the establishment itself. So yes, they all admit that they're under-resourced and have jobs available. I don't think there was anyone I spoke to that did not, including yourself, Mr. Chitty, that didn't have some positions that they needed to fill. But realising the realistic approach of knowing that they can't fulfil them all and trying to manage with the lower end of the spectrum as possible, as much as possible. The modified programs, which they did in COVID, and that could mean things like one in particular talked about the ropes course and how they got rid of the ropes course because of COVID and the inability or the hard way they needed to put their processes into place due to COVID restrictions and 1.5 meters, etc. And how getting rid of that activity, they've created new activities that are a lot more COVID safe, and they're actually working really well. So in actual fact, the innovation that came from COVID with the programming is providing a lot of results that are being seen, but also will probably sustain into the future. So that's really pleasing. Insurance issues are still real. So a couple of people I spoke to have, not only premiums have risen, but certainly they're juggling trying to find an insurance provider at renewal time was arduous, and they had to go through several brokers or several contacts to try to navigate that. The lessons they all learnt from that was around their systems and processes and having strong documentation around that to help prevent that into the next session that they've got to go through with renewals. But the insurance issues are still real out there, and I can't emphasise enough, and we've said it probably too many times, but I'll say it again, insurance brokers should be part of your business. You need to liaise with them as you would your accountant, and we need to certainly keep them up to speed with anything that you're doing in your activities or in your businesses in a regular time frame. The other thing they mentioned is there's a lot of grants out there right now, some which amazingly are for businesses and corporations, which is not regular, but obviously because of COVID or bushfires. And there is a lot out there, but they won't last. So they're probably, what I'm highlighting is these have happened because of these epidemics and issues. So if you want to take an opportunity with these, you have to get in, because we don't think that it's going to be around long term. Certainly on the not-for-profit level, they will be, but when it comes to the business side of things, they will be few and far between into the future. So it's a great opportunity and a great leg up, but certainly what I heard from the networking across the board was they don't have time to apply. So even though it's going to support the business and get some of the things that they've wanted to do for some years, it's the time they have to take to sit down and actually apply for that when we know that everything is back 120% and under-resourced. So yeah, lesson there. If you've got some people that you can recruit on a basis to help you with this sort of thing, there's probably a lot more grant seekers out there than there are outdoor leaders right now. So see if you can work with some of those to get you that leg up with some of these grants. But the biggest thing that came out of it is everyone was really optimistic about the industry for the future. And the vibe in the room and the vibe in the conference was, yeah, we're going to conquer this thing. We're going to get through it. We're going to keep going. And yeah, great future ahead of us. Guys, anything you want to add to any conversations you had? I think, David Gregory, you had a lot of conversations with people being in the exhibition area, but was there anything that came out for you?
I just think it was just great to reconnect with people, and those informal discussions around networking. I found some quite interesting comments, especially around changing programs, and we were forced into making dramatic changes. And I think this gives us the opportunity to also make big changes in the industry as well, and positive changes, not just fiddling and not just regressive changes, but really, and I know we've got the summit coming up, but because we have had such a huge amount of change, I think that also gives us that great opportunity. So I think that's a wonderful takeaway from that, from the overall conference.
Yeah, thanks. No, that's awesome.
And sorry, I must dash off. I've got to catch another plane. So I'll talk to you. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Mr. Chi, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of positiveness, even with the problems across a whole range of different types of organisations. I think the two things that I noticed is that there didn't seem to be an awareness that we actually haven't beat COVID. Yeah. And if our federal government makes a reasonably large mistake somewhere, we could go back to masks and 1.5 metres and some sort of group size thing. There was, I didn't ask the question and I didn't put it to anyone, but I didn't think there was a lot of what ifs. I think people were thinking it was all over. Now, it may well be, but it's not guaranteed if you look at what's happening to the rest of the world.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's a really good point. And I think you're right. The complacency in the room was quite evident. Probably showed by how many people were hugging as opposed to elbow connecting. But also, I think we feel like we've conquered the most of it. But you're very right. If something does go wrong, and we could very quickly end up with some certain face-fronting challenges again.
Yeah, and it might be as simple as borders, which can cause certain organisations problem, or it might be something more critical where we get lockdowns, short-term lockdowns, long-term lockdowns. The other thing I think comes out of this, particularly the using staff that are less competent and not training staff, getting last-minute staff in that we don't know, is we're actually increasing the likelihood of having an accident.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you can limit that by reducing the complexity of the activities or taking out activities that have a higher risk, for instance. But I'm not quite sure people are doing that to the degree. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to have an accident, but certainly it increases the potential for the industry to have accidents.
Yeah. And I think we just definitely need to be aware of that and monitoring it. But yes, it certainly is real. I mean, I know Brennan said earlier, it's great to sort of have a bit of a breather now with the school holidays, but very soon we're going to be back into it. And the risk of burnout and hence, risk of incident is probably very real. No, really good point.
I think the thing there is that if there is a major incident, how do we handle it? New South Wales has now got an incident response team. That's not across the country, and the other peak bodies may or may not have that resource. And how will government look at us? For instance, WorkSafe.
Yes.
Will they find us lacking if they come and have a look? Around an incident. I think they're things we probably, from a strategic point of view, need at least to be making sure people are thinking about.
No, absolutely. Very good point. Awesome. Well, that's pretty much my snapshot, and thanks to Dave and Dave for contributing to that as well. As I say, it's an awesome event, and congratulations to the ACA on being the first, I think, to get back to conference. But there's a lot more to flow from that. And just a reminder that, you know, sometimes you say, oh, can I really afford the time to get away and attend some of these? It does really give you a bit of a perspective back on, you know, what you need to implement in your business. It's like the saying of standing on the balcony and looking from another direction. Sometimes you're so enclosed in your business and so enclosed in your activity, it's very hard to see the opportunities. So that removal for, if not just one day, often gives you a perspective that is very worthwhile, if not just for the networking as well. So a reminder about the next Connect and Share forums. Next week will be all about NOEC, and we'll give you a step-by-step guide of what to expect at NOEC, and that is, of course, the National Outdoor Education Conference. There's a lot of excitement about this event, certainly from the ACA conference. A lot of people were talking about it, and yeah, we're looking forward to it very much. So we'll talk about that next week, and there'll be a bit of a Q&A session. And then the 30th will be all about our AAAS audits. And, you know, if you're thinking about doing this, or if you're not thinking about doing this, and, you know, just want to know more, this is the Connect and Share for you. So come along and we'll talk to our auditors on what that process involves and what it can deliver you. So anyone else want to ask any questions online, or any issues that they're seeing or opportunities before we finish up for today with 2 minutes left? I take it we've talked about everything. Okay, fabulous. All right, guys, we'll give you a 2-minute early mark. So have a great rest of the day, awesome weekend, and the best start to term 2 as of Monday. So have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. See you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brendan.
Bye.
Bye, Dave.
See ya.